Hopefully not too hungover. Cool, so my name is Alyssa, and I'm here today to, according to JSConf.Asia, spill some tasty beans on bot building. I still don't know what spilling some tasty beans actually means, but you'll see. Okay, so who am I? Yeah, okay, that's my intro done. Okay, I'm actually from the commercial software engineering team in Microsoft. So what we do is we work with enterprise and startup developers, just like you guys, to build epic stuff. So this is my Twitter handle, if you want to shoot any questions during my talk. All right, so on the menu today, I'm just going to more specifically cover these different things. So let's start with a simple, gentle introduction into what's bots and NLP. Okay, so who's tried a bot or tried to build one before? Okay, maybe 50% of you. So in the middle of 2016, around that time, I think Facebook released their Messenger API platform, and a lot of companies started getting real FOMO about having chat interfaces or an engine to build chat interfaces. So it suddenly became really cool to have a small little app that lives in your Messenger. So yeah, a chatbot is a service that you interact with via a chat interface. And there's this common misconception that your bot can only be smart, or it's a good bot, only if you use natural language processing, which is NLP. But to be honest, that's a myth. If your bot is badly designed, NLP isn't going to save it. You can put makeup on a potato, but it's still a potato. Okay, so what about NLP, natural language processing? It's a form of machine learning, text classification specifically, and it involves you trying to understand what your user is trying to do. So I think universally, there's these two main concepts that have been adopted across all the different chat engine platforms, and that's intent and entities, okay? So intent is what your user is trying to do, and then entity is the important data within what your user says that's important. So for example, I want a chili crab, which is great in Singapore, by the way, and salad. Those are your two food entities. All right. Okay, so how do you go about making one? I'm not going to tell you that do it the Microsoft way or the highway. There's a ton of different ways you can make a bot. So Dialogflow is from Google. They acquired API.ai, if you guys didn't know that. Wits from Facebook, there's IBM Watson, and even BotKit from Howdy. But today, my demos are going to be using the Microsoft Bot Framework's Node.js SDK, seeing as this is a JSConf. So I'm hoping that a lot of the concepts that I talk about today can be sort of used in your bots, no matter what framework you use. Okay, can someone tell me what does a bot and an app have in common, like a mobile or web app? No takers? Okay, building one is easy, building a good one isn't. Okay, so rule number one, when you start thinking about designing your bot, it's really important to remember that bots aren't mobile web apps. Okay, and you're probably thinking I woke up on a Saturday morning just to hear someone tell me this. Okay, but what I really mean is that they're a whole different interface. Okay, your users are going to perceive things, and they're going to behave super differently in a chat interface. So I want to illustrate this with a project that I did recently with a startup called Meow. They're based in Singapore. They are over a year old, and they have 24,000 users using their app. And what that app does is it helps you solve math questions. Okay, I wish I had this when I wasn't doing so well in math in high school, but never mind. So what you do is you snap a photo of your question, and then what it does is it uses machine learning to understand what's in the question to give you similar questions, as well as any suggested readings on concepts that are inside the question. And because their user base is primarily secondary school students, which is between maybe 13 to 16, What they wanted to do is create this tutor that's like a personal tutor to engage their target audience. So what they wanted to do was to convert their app into a bot. And the problem with thinking about it this way is that you start to get an experience that isn't that good. Okay, so this is kind of like the app. You send in a photo, and then it actually asks you, do you want to see similar questions or relevant topics, which is similar to what you see in the app as well. Okay, so what we did is we spent a week sitting down with them and sort of revamping the UI. So before I go into the design considerations that we put into this, let me just show you the V2 that they have. So there's actually sort of a proper menu telling users what they can do. And this is using the cards, which Facebook Messenger actually provides you with. And users actually know what kind of images they can upload to the bot. So upload this, and as you can see, it will just immediately display similar questions. I like the bot. It's really quirky and has a lot of fun stuff inside. And then you can view relevant topics about the questions as well. Cool. So, okay, we'll use this as an example to talk about the design considerations. There's two main sort of categories that I would put this in. One is managing your users' actions, and the second one is managing the way your bot displays things to the user. So managing user actions. When you start the conversation, just immediately tell the user what you can do for them, okay? And the user should be able to just, go in and just do it. Secondly, at every step, the user has to know what they can do next. So for example, after you show the answer, you can show like some suggested actions like this. Or for example, at the end of every conversation, you should show them like a bunch of stuff telling the user what they can do next. You should be able to handle popular trigger words and phrases. So for example, help me, I'm lost, I'm stuck, what do I do? Exit, quit. And lastly, you have to be able to handle their BS, because for some reason, users love talking a lot of crap to your bot, so you should be able to handle some of these for a good experience. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly demo how to do some of this in the bot framework. Okay, so this is just using a local emulator. As you can see, I have some cards, so you can use this for your menu. And how you instantiate this, just like really simply, you can create a message and then just create 2 hero cards. It's pretty self-explanatory. If you want to do this without the bot framework, I think the Facebook Messenger API has some, like you have to see what they accept in the request to send a card to your user. And then if I say, Alyssa, okay, so these little things in the bot framework are called suggested actions. So you can just push in a couple of actions. So main menu, similar questions, solve equation. And then you send all of these as one message to your user. Again, Messenger API has like protocols for this, so you can just send the proper request. And then if you want to handle like special keywords, you just user rejects. You can just do a .trigger action, and it will execute the dialog. Okay, so the last one is the small talk. And I want to spend a little bit of time talking about this. So I wrote something called the small talk module. This one is a little bit harder to do because there's just so many things your user could say. Okay, so api.ai/dialogflow actually has a small talk module, okay? And it has like 1,400 over utterances. So what I did is I basically took out all those and exported it to a TSV. Thanks, Google. But yeah, I thought this was pretty good. So what you can do is go to this bot framework small talk repository, and then you can actually train whatever model, whatever machine learning model you want to use with these. And then the responses are actually in a separate file. Okay, it's a bit slow. Okay, this one. So the responses are all in here. I just decoupled them so that you can, it's easier to edit this. So yeah, what I used to create the Smalltalk module was the Microsoft Q&A Maker. But like I say, you can use whatever NLP engine you want to train it with. And then I just integrate it inside here, because it's exposed as an API. So if I say, I just trigger this, say whatever you want. How are you? You're bad. So yeah, now I can sort of answer these little things that the user throws at it. You say thank you, goodbye, super common things. And you don't have to use like specific keywords. You can just use general words to express yourself. Cool. Okay. So the next category is how to manage your bot's display. So the first one is just cut to it. Your user wants the least number of steps to do something. So yeah, make it happen that way. And also, you have a really limited space to show your information, OK? If you think about it, your mobile screen size, assume your user's on mobile, is only this big. If you want to show a wall of text or tons of images, your user's not going to bother like scrolling up and looking at what you've done. Sorry, what you have displayed to them. So one good way to overcome this is actually to, you can see this, people don't read, they hate reading. Sorry, let me show you that again, OK? OK, let's say your phone screen is only this big, OK? So what you want to do is you actually want to use typing indicators, which are quite a common thing that you can use across different platforms. I think Telegram probably has one as well. And you want to give your users time to read the chunks of text bit by bit. And like typing indicators are a really good thing to use in this scenario. OK. OK, so now I'm going to go through some popular scenarios. And what I mean by popular scenarios is a lot of developers are always like, how do you actually implement this inside the bot, OK? The first one being authentication. It's really natural for someone to want to authenticate their user through the bot because it's meant to be personalized. You want to know who's actually using it. So rule number one, whatever you do, don't login through the chat interface itself. Don't do it. What you want to do is like normal OAuth. If you authenticate through Facebook, you open a web view, and then you just call back to the bot. The bot's basically a web service, so this is something that's you can do. Let me just show you. OK, I think I need to stop this first. OK. Now let's run this saying, just restart the conversation. Login. Oh, wait, what? My thing isn't showing. That's weird. Oh, OK. That's weird. I don't know why it suddenly changed to extend. OK, so I basically said login, and it's asking me to sign in to my account. So I'll just click on that sign in. And then I just made this dummy page just for demo purposes. Don't do this at home. Please use HTTPS. I'm just doing this for demo. OK, so this is so that someone else can't spoof if they get your URL. OK, and then now you are logged in. So there's this whole sort of seamless experience that happens. And you can actually just use, I've used Passport here. For those of you guys who don't know what Passport is, it's like this super good node package for handling authentication. And I've just defined like a pretty easy local strategy. So You can use like whatever strategy you want, Facebook, Dropbox, Microsoft's, GitHub, Google's. And then what happens is your bot will receive that message and then do the validation over here. Yeah. OK. So yeah, it's quite flexible, and please handle authentication this way. All right, the next one is custom controls. Let's say Facebook provides you with like cards or quick replies, but they don't provide you with checkboxes, for example. And you want the user to be able to select multiple things before sort of going back to your bot, OK? So what you can do is make use of the web view. The web view is your friend. It's not this annoying thing that I don't know, people think it's annoying sometimes. But in Facebook, it's pretty non-intrusive. It just opens up like this. So I'll just quickly show you how you can do something like this. OK. Which one was it? Demo 2, sorry. So if I say something like quiz. OK. So let's say you want your user to open this quiz and complete it in another window. You just open it. And then you can say, OK, why didn't you see it? OK. And then when you submit that, you can just go back to the bot. And yeah, the bot sort of seamlessly receives the response. So yeah, you're not just limited to the UI templates that are provided to you in the Messenger protocol or in any other chat protocol that you use. If you use channels that don't have embedded web views, I would suggest you use this sparingly, because it's kind of annoying having to swap to like your Safari browser and then swap back to the bot. So yeah, use it unless you really need to. OK, so third one being forms. This one seems really simple on face value, but I'm going to show you why it's not, OK? And I want to illustrate this through a recent thing that we did with a company called Wigo. I don't know if you guys have heard of them before. They have an awesome dev team. Their company basically is a flight search engine. So they have 700 over flight and hotel partners that they scan through whenever you make a search. And we spent 2 weeks with their dev team building out a bot that can take the user's search history and then provide recommendations based on that. And they also wanted to integrate the flight search capability inside the bot. So the V1 was something like this. And then we realized that this is what we want the user to do. OK? Realistically, your user isn't going to be as simple as this, because they love being difficult sometimes. They're going to do stuff like this. They're going to do stuff like this, or this. And it's like, oh my god, why can you not? Yeah, so there's actually 5 different scenarios. There's a lot of edge cases that you have to handle, because there's a ton of different things that they can change. And actually, I'm going to share a story. I tried building a V1 of handling all these different edge cases. And let's say it wasn't the most efficient way you can do things, OK? And this was a conversation between me and the developer. So he's like, give me a while to understand your code first, OK? And when I saw this, I was like, oh my god, what have I done? Like, OK. So we went back to the drawing board and sort of redesigned everything. And it looks something like this. This is the more readable version. I'm just really bad at drawing arrows. It's actually simpler than it looks. So before I dig into this, I'm just going to show you guys what the end result looks like. OK. Oh, sorry, I have to end this first. Oops. This one. OK, so because they wanted to build a recommender bot, the user had to log in so that you can retrieve the history. But for today, we won't do that. Say I want to go to Singapore tomorrow. Sorry, I'm already in Singapore. I want to go to Bangkok tomorrow. OK, so it identifies that that's your departure date, and that's your destination. OK, let's say I'm like the worst user ever, and I just say, I want to go to Bali instead. OK, leave tomorrow and come back. I'm just totally not answering what the bot's saying, OK? And come back next Friday. OK, so you can see that it's able to handle a lot of different stuff. If I say change my destination, then it can ask me which city it will be going to. I can't go from Singapore to Singapore. Auckland, because I used to live there for a while, so it's awesome. OK, so you can see that this actually handles, like, you can throw whatever you want at it, and it can really handle a lot of different scenarios. Oh, it has the mouse there. That's annoying. OK, so let's break this down a little bit. So the first thing that you start with is you initialize the stack and prompts. This is using the bot framework, but I mean you can take the principle behind it. So if the user says, I want to go to Bali tomorrow, you initialize the stack and your prompts that you need from the user. And then if this is a first run, so if they've provided some parameters to begin with, then you can just go into this loop and validate the parameters. Sorry, if statement. Otherwise, you get the current context, and then you ask the user what you need from them based on the current context. And then extracting the intents and entities. This part, for me, required natural language processing. So either the user can search their flights, or they can change whatever parameter they want. And then the entities are basically the parameters that you need from them. You might not need NLP in your situation, but I'm just showing you, how to execute if you do need NLP. So you can just extract the intent like this, and you can extract the entities from your user's utterance. And then you check whether there's an intention for them to change. So you check the intent. This is pretty self-explanatory. It's just an if statement. Otherwise, you move to validate parameters. OK, so going on to validating parameters, what you want to do is get the current context, and then you handle the user's date input based on the current context. For example, if the user gives you a single date, like 30th of January, then you have to match it to your current context to actually find out what they're talking about. If there's no valid date input, then you just save that into the state. And then this is how you validate the location. In my case, if there's no location, just say location entered is false. Otherwise, you just validate that. So you can use whatever validation logic you want. Wigo has a place API that lets you put in a city code and get a location. So that's what we use to validate. And then you pop it off the stack because it's been, the location has been identified. And then you move on to the next step, which is checking whether all your parameters have been filled and checking for invalid input. So if no date entered, no location entered, then you go and tell the user to input a valid value. Otherwise, if there's still things in your stack, you have to loop the dialog again. If your stack is empty, it means you have all your parameters and you can get ready to search. Yeah, so it just loops back here after a while. OK, so I want to wrap up with talking about the status quo, more specifically these few points. So let's start with the NLP conundrum. OK, so what I mean by FAQ scenario is those FAQ bots are the ones that handle all your customer service questions or plug into a knowledge base to handle many, many different kinds of questions, OK? For example, maybe the Singapore Airlines chatbot can answer how heavy can the baby be when you put it in the bassinet, when should you check in. There's like a ton of different questions that you can ask it. Yeah, I've rarely had customers settling with just a third-party NLP tool. And for a couple of reasons, there's this problem called the cold start problem. it's basically where you need a lot of training data to reach the accuracy that you need. When you make a NLP model with too many intents, it starts to get really confused if you don't put enough training data in it initially. And yeah, this leads to something called intent dilution. This is just something that I've experienced with FAQ scenarios. A lot of engines have intent limitations and entity limitation in terms of the number of intents and entities that you can have. And also, not all languages are supported if you want your bot to go internationally. So some possible solutions you could do to get around this is to use NLP as your first layer, but don't forget about traditional search. This means Azure Search, Elasticsearch, sometimes just doing, like indexing your knowledge base and answering questions through, like Elasticsearch can be super effective. And secondly, when NLP fails, just make sure your UI, your user can actually navigate some buttons to maybe get to the answer that they want, okay? So UI is another fallback. And, sorry, if everything else fails, go to your fallback message, be like, okay, I'm still dumb, I can't handle this. And then offer like an email handover. Do you wanna, send an email to someone? Or a live chat handover if you have one. Okay, so number 2, should you build a bot? Should you build a bot? This is my rule of thumb. If you can Google it, don't build it. Sorry, if you can Bing it, don't build it. Okay, this is like really homemade. I just used the pen to draw it in. Okay, so the great debate, bots versus search engines versus apps. I mean, this is on everyone's mind, right? When building a bot, you ask yourself 3 things. Number 1, does your bot have a unique value proposition that you can't do via a search engine or your app? Number 2, can it do it much faster than using a search engine or an app? And number 3, does it actually fulfill some sort of purpose? Or do you just like the idea of having a bot because, it's like a buzzword. It's like blockchain for AI, blockchain for everything. Okay. And lastly, why build a bot, So for these couple of reasons, they open up a new channel, especially to millennials. So a lot of millennials actually love using bots. You might not use it, but they definitely are using it. And it just opens a new engagement channel. For customer service, it helps you alleviate a lot of the dumb questions that your users might have. So yeah, it will help you alleviate customer service. You can engage users in a new way. And lastly, it's personalized. So I was talking to the CTO of Wigo, and I was asking him, why do you want to build a bot? Because you already have an app. Sorry, yeah, you already have an app and a website. And he said that, I think chat and voice interfaces are the future. One day, I want to have a bot that really knows my preferences. So for example, if I want to go to fly on a business trip to Manila, it knows that I want to fly first class. I can't afford that yet, but I want to fly first class, and I want to fly Philippines Airlines. And you can skip a lot of the manual searching. So that's the future that he envisioned with it. And yeah, I really think that that's a super exciting future, and I don't think it's too far away from now. Cool. All right, thanks everyone for listening. And if you have any questions, just feel free to tweet me.